My name is Mr. Kester Amos. I'm from Bayelsa State. I'm an animal scientist and also a member of the Nigerian Institute of Animal Science, and I'm the CEO of Kester Amos Consultancy Services Limited. Kester Amos Consultancy Services Limited is into livestock production and management. We do a lot of other things apart from snail farming. We are into poultry production, grass cutter, rabbits, pig, fish farming, you name it, anything that has to do with livestock, that is what we deal on. We also supply raw materials like your poultry cages, we supply day-old chicks, we supply lots of things. I would like you to take time to go through our YouTube videos and see a lot of work that we have done on the YouTube with regards to livestock. Today's training, like I said, is strictly on snail farming. And after this snail farming training, I'm also thinking of coming up with other livestock like poultry, pig, and so on, creating groups for them. So this is just to give you a brief introduction of what Kester Amos Consultancy Services is about and who Kester Amos is about. Without much ado, we will proceed to the introductory class for snail farming, and I need to tell you what you need to know before you begin snail farming. Now, a lot has been said about snail production by me, by many consultants on the internet. You find out lots of journals, books, papers on snail farming. Loads of information have been said about snail farming. But there's a lot you still don't know, and there's a lot people don't tell you. Now, for you to go into snail farming, there are two key ingredients you must have. Very key to success in the business of snail farming. Number one is patience. You have to be very patient. Why? Because snails are not fast-growing animals. Yeah, some people will tell you that snails will get to maturity in 6 months, in 7 months, in 10 months. No, but that's not true. I can tell you that because I am in the business and I've been in this business for more than 10 years. Snails are slow-growing animals. Before you will have a snail at table size for market, you're looking at between 12 to 18 months. Yes, they begin to lay eggs after 9 months. From the stage of the egg, when they hatch from the egg till the time when they begin to lay is a space of 9 months. But while they begin to lay, they are still not physically or physiologically matured. We have what is called sexual maturity and physiological maturity. Sexual maturity is when an organism or an animal is capable of giving birth. That is reproductive age. But the animal is still not physiologically matured. That is attaining the full size in order for you to eat it. That is what we call table size. So the physiological maturity is between 12 to 18 months, preferably 18 months for you to have very good sizes. While sexual maturity is 9 months. So that is to say from 9 months old, the snails will begin to lay eggs. But they are not physiologically mature. They are not table size yet for you to sell. Yes, they are edible, but of course you want to sell snails that are a little big or big so you can have good return on the investment, not just when they're about to lay. You can sell them as point of lay like we sell to those who are farming them. Anybody that wants to farm snail must get them at point of lay and not when they are physiologically matured. I will tell you why as we proceed with the lectures. And number two thing you need to have is commitment. You don't start a farm and not be committed to the farm project. You have to be committed. Yes, you may not be the one to do the day-to-day activities on the farm, but you still need to visit the farm at least once a week to understand what is going on. And before you venture into this business, this is why you are here. You need to have a good understanding of snail farming, even if you are not the one doing the daily activities on the farm. The reason is if you have this understanding about snail farming and your farm attendants, those who work for you on the farm, have the knowledge that you know what they are doing, they will do the job more diligently. But if you just feel you have the money, you can spend it how you want it, and you just set up the farm, you don't have any idea about snail farming, the people working for you can play a fast one on you. They can do whatever they like. You don't know what is going on. And Add to that, you're not committed to the business. Maybe once in a month, you just go there and look around. They will keep telling you stories. So, but when you know what you are doing, even if you're not there doing it, for the fact that your workers understand that our boss knows this business very well, they will be more diligent with their job. So these two ingredients are very key in starting off a snail farm business, which is patience, to wait for the business to grow, and two, commitment to the business. They are very key to snail farming. If you don't have any of these two characteristics, then you have no business with snail farming. You can just end your training today and go back home because you're not ready for snail farming. So these are the two things you must have at the back of your mind before venturing into snail farming. Now, snail farming is graded into small scale, medium scale, and large scale farms, like every other agricultural venture is. But the danger with snail farming on a small scale is it is not really a small scale. Why? Because snails are highly prolific. They lay a lot of eggs. So if you have the intentions of starting a small scale farm, you will discover that this small scale farm will soon grow into a commercial farm. So if you don't have the resources to have a commercial farm, then you should be raising snails for consumption and not for commercial purpose on a small scale. The reason is, for instance, if you have the poultry, let's say you're doing broilers, the broilers will not lay eggs and begin to multiply. All you're doing is raising the day-old chicks to a particular weight or particular age, probably 8 weeks, and you sell them off. So you know that there is no time where you have to run out of space. But in the case of snails, they grow geometrically. Snails don't have a limited level of expansion because the snails you brought in, they will begin to lay, and when they lay and hatch, the snails that they hatch to will begin to lay as well. Those ones will lay and hatch, their offspring will begin to lay. So the business continue to grow from strength to strength. So the issue you'll be having is space. Do you have enough space? So when you talk about starting a snail farm on a small scale, and you're thinking of, okay, in the next 2 years, you'll be selling your snails, you should also consider that these snails that you're starting with today, be it 100 or 200 snails, as much as they lay frequently and what they lay hatches and the hatchlings grow to 9 months old, they will also begin to lay. And another thing you must consider is by the time these snails are 9 months old, you would have had loads of snails. So if you have 1 pen, 2 pen, 3 pens, where would you have the offspring of these snails that are being hatched? So these are some of the factors you must consider. Why? Because I've built a few farms, as you would know, and some persons will start with 100 pens, thinking that in 2 years' time they will start to sell snails. But they will discover that in 6 months, these 100 pens are filled up with snails, and they don't have the resources to build another farm to transfer these offsprings to. So you find out that you are now congested with snails that are not stable size, and these snails are still breeding and they are still producing, and you don't have where to keep these snails. So you begin to stockpile snails, overstock them, which is one of the major causes of death in snail and cannibalism. So you see that at the end point, you have loads of snails, but they are not matured enough for sale and they continue producing, and you don't have extra funds to begin to expand the farm. So before you know, the snails will begin to die in their numbers and you run out of business. Why? Because you don't have sufficient space. So you must take into recognition your purpose of going into snail farming. Do you want to have it as a small scale business and just run around with it and see how snails perform? Or do you want to have it as a small scale business and see if all that has been said about snail farming is true? Then you start it on a commercial venture. These are the things you should be thinking about now. Because if you have an intention of a small scale snail farm, your small scale snail farm will grow in no time from small scale to medium scale, from medium scale to large scale, because at no point will you stop the snails from producing. You can't say, no, I want to stop them from breeding. Snails are haemaphrodites. They have both male and female reproductive organs. You don't have a male snail, you don't have a female snail. So even if you want to control the breeding, you can't say, let me keep the males away from the females so that they will not produce for a time. No. Every snail lays egg. So there is no way you can there's no way you can control the breeding of the snails. As long as you have a group of snails together, they will continue breeding. So you should be ready for expansion under any circumstances, whether small, medium, or large scale. You must be ready for expansion. So this is very key. When people set up snail farms for people, they don't tell you these things. And of course, you've not heard me say these things on my videos. That's because I'm doing more practical videos. But very soon I'll be doing theoretical videos where you need to hear the nitty-gritty like this before going into the business. So you know how much you have in your pockets before you start the business. Because if you start with 4 pens and 50 snails, let's assume you have 50 in one pen, you have 3 empty pens. Trust me, in 2-3 months, these 50 snails will lay up to 200 or 400 snails. And those 3 pens will not be sufficient for them. Now your extra 3 pens are filled. You don't have money to build more pens. What happens to the snails? And these 4 months old snails are not ready for sale. You now begin to crack your head and you are still stockpiling them upon one another. So they become overcrowded, the mortality rates begin to increase, and before you know, the snails begin to die. You start to call your consultant, what do I do? How do I do? Why are my snails dying? But the thing is, you're supposed to have expanded your farm, but the resources are not there. So you need to define what a small scale farming is. If it's poultry farm, pig farm, grass cutter, rabbit farm, they don't produce as high as snails. So you can have a small scale farm, run it, make profit from it, reinvest it. But with snails, a small scale farm, you cannot make returns from it to reinvest. Why? Because the production continues increasing by the day. So these are some of the things you must understand. Now, I have told you snails are hermaphrodites. So you don't have a male snail, you don't have a female snail. 2, we call them the 4 characteristics of snails. There are 4 very key ingredients or 4 key things you must understand about snail farming. Now, one is their hermaphrodites, which I've already explained to you that you don't have a male and a female. All snails lay egg because in a single snail you have both the penis and the vagina. So as long as they come to sexual maturity, they will begin to lay eggs. 2, snails are nocturnal animals. They are more active in the night than in the day. Most times in the day, they spend their time dormant. They sleep or they are in just one spot or they hide away from daylight. But once it is night, they come alive. So snails are nocturnal animals. So you don't feed your snails in the morning. You don't feed them in the afternoon. You only feed the snails at night. The time you feed your snails is between 5 to 7 p.m. in the evening. So this makes it a very lucrative business for a civil servant. You can go to your job and come back home and attend to your snails. There's no quarrel. Unlike poultry and other livestock that you must attend to them before night falls, at least 2 or 3 times, morning, afternoon, evening. But with snails, you only attend to them in the evening, which time period starts from 5 to 7 p.m. Why? Because if you feed them in the morning, they would not come to feed, and that feed you have put there may have lost its taste before evening. So it's best you give them the feed in the evening when the feed still retains its maximum taste and quality. So the snails will feed from around 7 till dawn, and in the morning they go back into their hideout. So snails are nocturnal animals. They are only attended to once in a day. So once you feed them that evening, the next morning you go and take out the leftover feed. We'll talk about that when we get to management. Then 3, snails are vegetarians. You must understand that their basic feed are vegetables, so you don't spend so much on feed. Unlike other livestock, feed takes 70% of production cost, but with snails, it's 10%. All you do is feed them with their different fruits and vegetables. Then you add the supplementary feed, which is a concentrate or the snail formulated feed. So we'll talk about all of that when we come to snail feeds and feeding. So as you can see, there are loads we have to give to you. But today is an introductory class, so we don't want to take it far beyond. And snails are not friendly to the environment. You must understand that. They are animals that are largely influenced by their environment. Why? Because snails are cold-blooded animals. They are not warm-blooded animals. Like those of us in the academic field will know the difference between poikilothermic and homeothermic animals. So the snails belongs to the poikilothermic animals, which are cold-blooded creatures. As a result of that, you must get the habitat for the snails right. You must have the right environment where the snails must live and thrive. These are some of the factors that lead to high mortality in snail. Because why? Many people do not understand the habitat of the snail. They just watch a few videos and they like how the snail produces, they like what they hear, and before you know, they begin a snail farm and they run into lots of holdups. So in this training, I'm going to tell you the right type of habitat for the snail, being a cold-blooded animal, how the habitat must be raised and kept to ensure that the snail is thriving. Because what we are trying to do is, the snail is not a domesticated animal. It's a wild animal. It's predominantly found in the bush, in the forest. So in order for us to contain them in captivity, we need to create an environment that resembles exactly that of their natural habitat in order to keep them thriving. But any mistake or errors, you will have a high rate of mortality. Snails already have a high rate of mortality, which is 20%. Why do they have that level of mortality? It's because of the production. They are polytogous animals, animals that produce large number of young ones or offsprings. They also have a higher rate of mortality compared to animals that produces very little, like the cow, like the cattle. Yeah, the cow, the female we call cow, and man. They produce scarcely twins, sometimes triplets, but more often than anything else, one child is produced at a time. So the mortality rate is very low. But with snails, the productivity is very high. As we talk about the species of snails in our first class, you would come to find out that there are snail breeds that lay as much as 100 eggs, 200, 300 eggs, and so on. So I'll tell you about the mortality of each of these different breeds and varieties. But we are not going into that for now. We're just trying to prepare your mind on what snail farming is and also make you understand what you need to know before venturing into snail farming. So this is what we are going to capture today. Then Saturday, Sunday, we'll have our first two real lecture classes. So the animal is a cold-blooded animal. So you must understand the habitat of the animal and prepare it as such, because it already has a high rate of mortality. Now, I was trying to explain to you why they have high rates of mortality, because they produce a lot. And probably this is nature's way of controlling the population of the animal. Because an animal that one single snail can produce up to 400, 500 snails in a single egg production or in a clutch, you can only imagine the multitude of snails that will exist on the earth if they also do not have a high rate of mortality to check the population of the animal. So that is why do all you can, the best you can. Even me speaking to you, I must have 20% mortality come the end of the production cycle, which is a year, from a particular group of snails. But you that do not have the understanding that I have, and you're not putting things as right as I will put them, you will definitely have more than that. That is why you see that lots of people complain that snails are dying in my farm, snails are dying in my farm. Why? Because naturally with mortality, it is 20%. Now, when you make errors here and there, the percentage can go up to 50, 60. That is why you need to learn very well and learn from an experienced consultant, so you will know the nitty-gritties about snail farming. So these are some of the things I wanted you to have on this introduction class. I will take a recap. One, for you to be a snail farmer, you must have two ingredients. Number one is patience. Number two is commitment. You need to be patient to wait till the snails will grow to table size, which should take more than a year and a half. Two, you need to be committed. You need to be consistent with the business. Check on your farm attendants. Check on your farm manager. Ensure that things are done the way they should be done. That's it. for you. Then you must also try and understand the 4 characteristics of snails that makes them manageable. One, you should know they are hermaphrodites, so we don't have a male and female. Two, they are cold-blooded animals. The environment comes to play. We must have a suitable environment for them. Three, they are vegetarians. So they are fed largely on vegetables. So you don't need to spend a lot of money buying feeds. So when we talk about feeds and feeding stuff, we'll delve into details of the feeding aspect of snails. What are their best feed? And also how you should supplement it with the formulated mash. Then lastly, we said they are nocturnal animals. So they give you time to do other business. During the day, you can go about your normal activities. Then in the evening, you return by between the hours of 5 to 7 p.m. is when you feed them. So the feed you are giving to them will remain intact. The quality and everything will be intact when the snails come to consume. And of course, that will boost the growth of the snails. So we'll also look at other activities like management systems. We'll be talking about management systems. We'll be talking about production systems. We'll be talking about feeds and feeding. We'll be talking about the types of snails. We'll be talking about the best production cycles. We'll be talking about reproduction in snails, how they come about reproduction since they are hermaphrodites. Do a snail just reproduce in itself, or two snails have to come and exchange gametes? We'll talk about all those details. So today's class is basically the introductory part of it. So I want you to be aware of what a small scale snail farm is. It's not something that is sustainable for you to have returns on the investment. You can't invest 50,000, 100,000 in snail business and expect to make returns without spending more money, because the 100,000 you spend will not be enough to keep those snails until they all mature till when you want to sell them. You would need to continue spending money by increasing the space or housing units where you have them, because for increase they will increase because they continue to lay regularly and frequently. So this you must have at the back of your mind when going into small scale farming, medium scale farming, and commercial farming. Of course, with commercial farming, a lot ignore with commercial farming, a lot is involved, so you don't need to worry about how to go about the spacing. So we're going to be talking a lot about this come the weekend. So this is just an introduction, and I am hopeful that this has been very helpful to you, and we are all excited about the lectures that are coming on. So thank you, God bless you, and bye bye.